Ano bang simulation ginawa ho natin dito at naka-come up tayo na kaya nila yan. 650 pesos kinita ko araw-araw. Isa lang ang aking jeepney. 2.8 million yung bibiling kong unit. How do you want me to go over this and say, sige, magsama, sabi nyo, magbuo kayo ng cooperative.
Ayusin nyo muna yung mga problema ninyo. Yung coordination with the LGU, lahat yan, bago kayo magbigay ng deadline. Para sa akin, dapat open-ended. Huwag na muna ninyong bigyan ng deadline kahit na, thank you, at least you're making an effort in extend ninyo. Pampapogi lang yun eh.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. The big story tonight.
The Senate Committee on Public Services is not convinced that an extension to the consolidation deadline for PUV operators would be enough to ease dissent for the modernization program.
Some senators also think that the term consolidation is just a fancy word for phase out. Camille Samonte with the big story.
Senators have started to look into the issues surrounding the PUV modernization program. This comes a day after the LTFRB agreed to extend the consolidation deadline for individual operators from June 30 to December 31. Public Services Committee Chairperson Senator Grispo asked the LTFRB why it's in a hurry to implement the program when it has yet to come up with a route rationalization plan. Rationalization route is part of the modernization program, along with the policy requiring operators to form a cooperative.
Ayusin nyo muna yung mga problema ninyo. Yung coordination with the LGU, lahat yan, bago kayo magbigay ng deadline. In-extend ninyo. Pampapogi lang yun eh.
The committee also aired concern about the eventual phase-out of traditional jeepneys.
Dinadaan niya dun sa magandang salita na hindi naman phase-out consolidation. Pero di ba yung the mere fact na hindi sila makapag-consolidate, technically parang phase-out yun na sila eh. Diba?
Sagutin nyo na lang, yes or no. Pag hindi sila na-consolidate, natanggal sila, diba?
Hindi po, Madam Chair, hindi po sila matatanggal kasi po for now we're trying to help them consolidate and we will continue to assist them and we will see to it that no one is left behind, Madam Chair.
Maganda ng pakinggan no?
Meanwhile, for the Group Manibela, extending the consolidation deadline means nothing.
Extension po ito ng paghihirap sa amin. Yung extension lang naman po ang binago doon, pero yung mga ibang provisions po doon na napakabigat, wala pong nabago.
Also among the issues discussed is the one raised by drivers and operators on the cost of the modernizing the traditional jeepney.
Ano bang simulation ginawa ho natin dito at naka-come up tayo na kaya nila yan. 650 pesos kinita ko araw-araw. Isa lang ang aking jeepney. 2.8 million yung bibiling kong unit. How do you want me to go over this and say, sige, magsama, sabi nyo, magbuo kayo ng cooperative.
Several transport groups will be holding a week-long nationwide strike beginning March 6. Manibela said that they will push through with this protest unless the LTFRB agrees to make consolidation voluntary. For News 5, Camille Samonte, we are One News.
Hazing complaints have been filed against several individuals linked to the death of Adamson University student John Matthew Salilig. But one question still remains. Who decided to bury Salilig's remains instead of bringing him to the hospital? The details in this report.
At least 7 out of the 18 suspects in the hazing death of Adamson University student John Matthew Salilig have surrendered to authorities. 6 of them surrendered last night, including Tung Cheng Teng Jr., the grand leader of the Tau Gamma Fraternity in Adamson, Mark Pedrosa, the owner of the house in Laguna where the initiation rites took place, Michael Recalde, James Balot, Sandro Victorino, and Earl Anthony Romero alias Slaughter, the whistleblower who led the police to Salilig's remains at a vacant lot in Cavite. Slaughter earlier joined the police in revisiting the house where the initiation took place. They were joined by witness Roy de la Cruz, another neophyte who underwent hazing together with with Salilig, who narrated how they were repeatedly hit with a paddle by the frat members. A CCTV footage even showed some of the involved members holding the paddle used for the initiation rites while riding a motorcycle.
30-second massacre, belt whipping, and candling.
Can you expound sa mga hindi masyadong alam yung jargons na yun?
Yeah.
Ano yung mga pinagawa na
The candling is, pinatakan nila akong candle sa likod. Inukit nila yung logo ng fraternity sa likod ko.
Okay.
And the belt whipping is, tinanggal nila yung mga pinatak na candle sa likod ko gamit yung belt. Pinapalo nila ako.
Alias Slaughter admitted that Salilig was hit too many times with the paddle.
Root chapter ko is 24 lang. Then, pagdating sa ADO is back to 0. Then, iba din yung bilang ng count ng bigay nila.
So, napadami?
Madami.
The police earlier said Salilig suffered at least 70 blows to the body. Based on the medical legal report, Salilig died from severe blunt force trauma with several hematomas or the pooling of blood outside a blood vessel found in at least 7 parts of his body. Aside from his thighs, bruises were also found on his chest. This afternoon, one more suspect from the fraternity's Adamson chapter called Alias Boy also surrendered to the police. Alias Boy is supposedly the master initiator during the hazing and was part of the group that buried Matthew. He says he is ready to reveal to authorities the suspect who ordered to bury Salilig's body. Suspects who have surrendered are now facing charges in violation of the anti-torture law. A founder of the Adamson University chapter of Tau Gamma Phi has meanwhile stepped down from his post earlier today, citing the severity of the crime. He says he is ashamed of being part of the group considering what happened to Salilig. This morning, Salilig's body was airlifted to his hometown in Zamboanga City. His remains will lie in state together with that of his grandfather who passed away on February 22. Arian Kalumbiran, We Are One News.
Let's discuss the recent hazing incident with Attorney Louis Asioche, former president of the UP Triskelions alumni. Welcome to the big story, Attorney.
Good evening, Gretchen.
Attorney, a lot has been said about Tau Gamma Phi the past days. One being, people can't fathom how pain can be inflicted upon a brother. Your reaction to the recent happenings?
Yeah, well, Gretchen, we condemn it. Looking at that video, there is no other way of looking at it but that it is a crime, a murder, and that it was perpetrated by members of the very fraternity you wish to join and which you are supposedly a member of, because this is just a simple welcome ritual, makes it doubly revolting. It is unjustifiable, and I, as a member of the Tau Gamma Phi, would not for a second think of it as anything else than a crime.
Attorney, just to be clear, dahil these are all just chapters and eventually you are all affiliated, there is also an anti-hazing law already. Just to be clear, officially, ano po ang policy ng Tau Gamma Phi? Do you subscribe and do you follow the anti-hazing law?
In the University of the Philippines, which is the founding chapter of the Tau Gamma Phi, we are compliant and we always adhere to the no-contact policy. It was in 2015, it was actually in place in UP way before when the 1995 anti-hazing law was already in place. And then when an incident transpired in 2014 involving another school chapter, we found it as an occasion to reiterate our advocacy of no-contact policy, this time with UP leading the no-contact policy and enjoining other school chapters, other councils, and other chapters to pay heed that we should be compliant with the law. So yes, as a matter of fact, in UP, the mother chapter, in all of our 55 years of existence, we have not had any frat or hazing-related deaths in the University of the Philippines.
But in effect, I don't know what you would call it, but an association, you have affiliates, you have chapters in other universities. The qualification of UP is, of what you describe in UP is clear. But as a confederation of different chapters, do you have any control over your other chapters?
Well, the numbers, we are a very big fraternity, and our numbers is both a boon and a bane. No, admittedly, all our chapters are autonomous; they are supreme in their own spheres. No, So what we endeavor to have is that to put in a semblance of a national organization that will put some semblance of order and discipline among the chapters. And UP, in fact, has been spearheading this global movement wherein the other chapters would have to be under a national organization so that these advocacies, these issues which continue to affect the fraternity would already be rectified.
Okay, Attorney, this isn't the first time this has happened. In fact, out of the 65 incidents of hazing deaths, the Tau Gamma Phi has recorded 16, the most number of hazing-related deaths in history, and also 4 since 2020. How come there's no policing system or accountability system, even with this record?
Well, that is something that we are really not proud of. I would like to say that that does not define our frat, but with the sheer number that you have cited, it seems to define what our frat is. But as I said, each chapter is autonomous. In UP, we have done something about it, and we are trying to push and put in place an advocacy that will cascade to all our chapters. We have been conducting trainings. We have been conducting conventions and seminars about the no-contact policy. We have started this in 2015 in earnest, only to be deferred because of the pandemic. So in 2 years, when the pandemic was in place, we could not go around all over the country to be able to disseminate or to conduct these trainings and conventions. But then again, once the pandemic restrictions have already eased up, we continue and we have resumed the conduct of these trainings. And in fact, we have scheduled conventions this month, even before this unfortunate incident involving Brad John Matthew transpired.
So, sir, in the meantime, if you do succeed in strengthening the national federation of all your chapters, how high should accountability go? I mean, you recognize the autonomy of the different chapters, but at the same time, you're trying to organize and say that, you know, what we are national. So presumably, there would be a charter, presumably, there would be officers at the national level. How high should accountability go?
Well, we have to align. We have to align it with what the law says. No? So those involved or those who are cognizant or have responsibility or some form of participation in the incident would have to be accountable and would have to be responsible for it. So it's one way of trying to of dovetailing our policies with what the law says.
Well, speaking of accountability, has the org reached out to the family of Salilig, and what will the org take care of in this case?
We did. In fact, we have a Brad, an alumnus of UP who is based in Zamboanga, who has reached out to the family. And this is apart from what the other chapters and councils have done. Apart from conveying their sympathies and condolences with the grieving family of Brad John Matthew, they have extended their help and have already committed to making those involved accountable. So we are fully cooperating, and presumably these members involved would be cooperating with authorities. We, in the Tau Gamma Phi, we do not give refuge to members who violate the law.
Okay, maraming salamat po. Thank you for your time, Attorney Louie Aseoche, former president po ng UP Triskelions alumni.
After the break, President Marcos has ordered law enforcement agencies to go after the big fish and not the small-time dealers in its campaign against illegal drugs. We'll discuss this further with PDEA spokesperson Derek Carrion when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. Continuing the big story here on One News. President Bongbong Marcos has instructed the country's law enforcement agencies to go after drug syndicates and not just the street-level dealers. Here's what we know. Marcos's pronouncement was mentioned by Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla during the sidelines of the 52nd session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. Remulla made the remark in reply to questions on the administration's current policies against illegal drugs. Interior Secretary Benhur Abalos, meanwhile, cited the recent number of illegal drugs confiscated by the PNP in its efforts to go after syndicates and not just small suspects. Abalos said that PNP has about close to 11.3 billion pesos as of now in terms of achievement. But speaking to the chiefs last night, former PNP chief turned Senator Bato de la Rosa believes the big fish in the illegal drug trade have returned after former President Rodrigo Duterte's term ended. De la Rosa cited the string of attacks against local government officials and the supposed comeback of Shabu Change as proof of this.
Let's discuss this matter further with PDEA spokesperson Derek Carrion. Good evening. Welcome to the big story, sir.
Good evening, sir. On behalf of our Director General Moro Virgilio Lasco. Good evening, sir and ma'am.
Sir, we've had a lot of occasion to speak with you over the past years, particularly during the time of President Duterte. We've questioned you, we've asked you questions about the conduct of that war on drugs over the Duterte term. What has changed perceptively at your level under President Marcos?
Well, sir, of course, following the command guidance of our Commander-in-Chief, President Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., well, the difference of the approach to the, we would like more, call it like more on the campaign against illegal drugs now. Of course, the three-point approach would be the mapping and prevention, cure, and enforcement. We're looking into the politics of this illegal drug trade, especially the syndicates behind it. And of course, we also want to focus our efforts on prevention, rehabilitation, and the socio-economic development side of the drug problem. So, mas may tuon na rin po ang angulo sa part ng interventions for the victims of the illegal drug trade.
Okay, na very quickly po, your reaction to Senator Bato de la Rosa saying that since President Duterte's term ended, parang nagbalikan daw ang droga sa mga back in the streets. Your reaction, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what is happening now and what has happened since the change in government?
Well, sir, we respect the opinion of the Honorable Senator, especially the fact that he's a former chief of the Philippine National Police. But at the same time, of course, in close tandem with the organization which he used to lead and other law enforcement agencies, PDEA assures the public that we will remain on top of the situation and do our best to control it and reassure the public that the streets will remain safe, notwithstanding these recent incidents, of course, which are all unfortunate, sir, definitely.
Sir, you're looking at the political side of this drug trade. Would you link this with any of the killings and the shootings recently? How far does it go as you know right now?
Well, the investigations on these incidents are being spearheaded by another law enforcement agency, particularly either the Philippine National Police or the NBI. So as far as PDEA is concerned, we are focused on the main mandate of the agency, which is, of course, being the lead in the national anti-drug campaign. We will rather focus our efforts on the intensification of the conduct of intelligence-driven and high-impact operations, leading to the arrest of the members of the top tier or the top level of the drug syndicates, as ordered by the President. And, of course, with the enhancement as well of our interagency collaboration to strengthen border control so that we can prevent drug smuggling. But again, we're not discounting any angle pertaining to the illegal drug trade in regard to these recent unfortunate incidents. There's one indicator, particularly that which happened to the Honorable Governor of Lanao del Sur. I believe there was an angle that was brought out pertaining to the illegal drug trade in relation to that. Again, this is still under investigation, ma'am.
Okay, sir, you mentioned prevention, cure, enforcement, as well as rehabilitation. But in terms of operations-wise, how different will PDEA's approach be when dealing with the drug syndicates and not the street-level dealers?
Well, we'd like to assure the public, particularly our Director General, Moro Virgilio M. Lazo, has received direct orders from the President for the PDEA to focus on the top tier of the illegal drug syndicates. And well, as we've mentioned before, being smaller in number comparatively, especially compared to our counterparts from the Philippine National Police, the PDEA has always, in fact, focused our efforts really more on the members of these illegal drug syndicates and their local counterparts in the country. That being said, we don't necessarily neglect the street-level anti-drug operations or the illegal drug activities involving street-level targets, but these are done more often than not in tandem with the territorial units of the Philippine National Police.
Sir, we want to also
Yes.
help monitor the success or gaps or failures or shortcomings of this war on drugs. But to that point, we'd like to understand what's the baseline data that we're using now. And I ask because, as you know, President Duterte insisted on his own baseline data, for example, in the number of drug users in the country. And to do that, he basically redefined the numbers that DDB was using. DDB was using a more conservative definition of a drug user. President Duterte wanted everybody included, including those who experimented once in their lives. So just to be clear, sir, anong data ang ginagamit natin ngayon as baseline? Are we still sticking to what President Duterte insisted or using? Or do we go back to the baselines of the 2015, 2018 surveys that were much lower?
Nagbago na po yung figura na yan, especially, well, of course, we have to reference that in relation to the campaign that was conducted by the previous administration, which has to be given also due credit. Definitely, sir, the last survey of the Dangerous Drugs Board will speak for itself in regard to the reduction of the number of drug users based on the independent survey that was commissioned by the DDB. I think that was placed at something like, hindi ko na po matandaan, no? It's been 2019 since the last survey. I think it is like 1.8 million. I think that was the last survey conducted. But again, sir, I think the time is ripe again if the DDB will eventually conduct or commission another survey. But definitely, sir, we would attribute the reduction of the drug users, again, to the impact of the previous campaign, notwithstanding its imperfections. Ano naman po yan? I'm sure it has its merits. So, and well, nakikita naman po yan in regard also to the interventions given to the certain individuals who were either drug users, who were eventually brought to the proper intervention through either community-based drug rehabilitation programs spearheaded by the DILG, or we have either the outpatient or the inpatient interventions facilitated by the Department of Health. And then again, we also have the interventions given to the offenders of classified as offenders who were enticed to join the illegal drug trade for lack of any viable means of livelihood. And these are given different interventions through either the Balay Silangan or what its predecessor, the Bahay Pagbabago, and the other intervention programs given by either the public sector or even the church in order to help them come back or bounce back from the illegal drug trade or from being victims of the illegal drug trade.
Okay, maraming salamat po. PDEA spokesperson Derek Carrion. And after the break, Pinoy basketball legend Danny Ildefonso is making a comeback to the PBA. We'll get more details on his break from retirement when the big story returns.
You're still watching the big story here on One News. Another aircraft, this time a medical evacuation chopper, has gone missing in Palawan. The air ambulance known as Yellow Bee was supposed to go to the Southern Palawan Provincial Hospital in Brooks Point yesterday when it was reported missing. The Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office says the helicopter was carrying at least 5 individuals, including the patients, the volunteer pilot, and an American nurse. Authorities are still determining why it disappeared, but the AFP Western Command suspects strong winds may have affected its flight. Authorities believe the chopper likely crashed in the water.
Hanggang ngayon ay nagpapatuloy po itong operation. May mga debris na nakikita with the Coast Guard, but these are yet to be verified pa. Of course, if it's a part ng aircraft.
Yung search area po ay nasa dagat po na parte na kung saan po area po ito ng Balabac Island. So karamihan po ay dagat po yung iniikutan ng ating mga barko na may mga isla po sa paligid.
Oil spill from the motor tanker that sank in waters off Oriental Mindoro have reached nearby coastlines. The Philippine Coast Guard collected samples of emulsified oil along the shores of Pinamalayan. The spillage also reached the town of Pola and Sibali Island in Romblon. Residents living in coastal areas are already complaining about the foul smell from the oil spill, while local officials are concerned about the potential damage to their beaches and marine life. Authorities have yet to retrieve the tanker, which rests some 1,500 feet underwater. Coast Guard has already asked the help of oil companies to contain the spill.
And before we go, age is definitely just a number for PBA legend Danny Ildefonso. Earlier today, the Converge Fiber Xers announced that it used its 15th local player roster spot to activate the 2-time PBA MVP and the 8-time PBA champion. Ildefonso is making a comeback to the hard court after 8 years in retirement. He last played for the Meralco Bulls in 2015. The activation of Ildefonso also paves the way for a unique achievement where a father and son are both playing in a PBA at the same time. Danny I's eldest son, Sean Ildefonso, currently plays for the Rain or Shine Elasto Painters. Naunahan pa si LeBron James, tsaka si Bronny. Grabe, no, but I'm such a fan of Danny Ildefonso. He's 46. You know, who knows, he might be in the Gilas roster tomorrow.
I'm sure a lot of people are eager to see how he plays, but good luck to Danny and to the father and the son.
That's true. It's never too late for you two.
And that's a big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more analysis. I'm Robbie Alampay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make your free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Gretchen Ho. Stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.